Hello again to everybody. A very good evening to you all. This is Shama here, your host for the evening. Thank you all for joining us today for the info session on career tracks in product, data science, and technology. IPL is absolutely delighted to see an amazing turnout for today's session. This is going to be a very interactive, knowledge sharing session, hence, I encourage you all to switch on your videos. Before we start today's session, allow me to give you a quick intro to Institute of Product Leadership, aka IPL. We are Asia's first business school providing accredited degree programs and certification courses in product management and leadership. We are partnered with three universities in India and the University of Houston in the United States. Founded in 2012, IPL has built and developed a community of product leaders and now, of course, data and design leaders. All the programs designed and offered by the Institute include UX and product design as key skills. We take pride in transforming executives into future product managers and industry leaders. You will get to interact with IPL alumni in the later part of the session. Being in the space of executive education, we receive many queries on career transitions. You may have questions like, how do you transition from an existing role to a product management role? Or what is the right path to becoming a product manager with design skills? We are more than willing to answer all your queries. All you need to do is scan the QR code to pick a slot with our expert panel. Please take a moment here to scan the code. You can find the link in the chat box too. Another very interesting initiative by IPL that has created a buzz in industry is the Insights 2020 series, where we do informative sessions 4 times a week with renowned speakers across the globe. We highly recommend you to check out these sessions. You do not want to miss out on these guys. You will find a registration link in the chat box. And yes, registration is mandatory. You can see the upcoming sessions and speakers as in the slide. Without further ado, allow me to welcome Professor Pinkesh Shah to start this session. He is our senior faculty at the Institute and was most recently the Global VP of Product Management McAfee. Over to you, Professor Shah.
Hey, thank you, Shima. I hope you guys can hear me okay there.
Yes,
Excellent.
absolutely, Shah.
Super. Well, a very good morning for folks who are joining with me here in the United States, and an amazing evening for those who are joining from Asia and India. I'm Pinkesh, and happy to kind of walk you through some of my quick tips on the topic that I've been asked to speak on today, which is, how do you build a career track that's not only aligned to your career preferences, but also what is kind of the industry trend, and how do you navigate through a transition, especially if you're in a certain role and you want to kind of move into certain different role, potentially in a different industry, potentially in a different um, function, leveraging those new age skills, right? So that's kind of the context of what I was asked. But I love interaction, and I think it's a fairly small group. So happy to also take on a lot of questions that may pop up. So feel free to keep on, adding your questions to the queue, and I'll pause in between to answer some of them as well. Yeah. So with that, let me see if I can share my screen. If somebody can allow me to, or give me the access to share the screen.
Done.
Okay, well, so as the topic suggests, it's mid-career transition. And so kind of let's define what is a transition, but more importantly, what is mid-career? In my last 20 years of experience, primarily started as an engineering person who accidentally moved into product management about 12 years ago. Most recently, I was the global vice president for products at McAfee. And in the last 6 years or so, as I've been associated with several business schools, including Institute of Product Leadership, um, I've learned a few things in terms of how people look at their career, what are the ground realities, and more importantly, what are some of the practical insights that one should use. So I'm going to kind of try and summarize 7 insights for all of you. Now, anybody who's got more than 5 years of experience generally is bucketed as what we call a mid-career professional. Usually that range is 5 to 15, but I think in India you can extend that from 5 to 20 as well. Years of experience is not a very hard criteria to define what is a mid-career, but somebody who's got enough exposure, enough maturity to understand what they prefer, what they like, and what they don't. Is usually what we call mid-career. Now, a lot of the tips that I'm going to share are also relevant to folks who are less than 5 years of experience. But I guess some of the challenges that I'm going to talk about are less so faced by folks who have less than 5 years of experience, just because their ability to do trial and error in their own career paths, their ability to kind of make sudden shifts is not as damaging if you make it wrong, or if you make a mistakes, as it would be for a mid-career professional, just because the cost of trial and error is very, very high. In fact, the best way to kind of explain this situation is this graphic, is this picture on the screen. And just in case you haven't figured this out, if each one of you is in that mid-career bucket, that dude on the plane is you. And what that means is that you're on a plane and you're trying to shift and catch a different plane, potentially at a higher altitude, while you are flying, right? And this is the key thing. If you're a fresher, you can take a stop, you can take a pause, you can take a break, and life is not as disruptive. As a mid-career professional, you probably have commitments, life, work, family potentially, and so now you can't really say, hey, look, let me stop, as I want to make this shift and make this change, let me kind of stop and pause and reset my career and find the best alternative and then again fly again, right? It's usually not a recommended thing. It's usually not a more optimized way of looking at it, and hence it becomes a slightly tricky situation because you're trying to shift planes in midair. And I think that's the crux of why people need to look at this in a little bit more systematic fashion as opposed to a button switch. A lot of people, and I'm going to talk a little bit more openly. I hope you don't mind. Feel free to disagree with me, ask questions. But a lot of folks, especially in India, have this notion that, look, if I do this, then this will automatically happen. And usually that this is some kind of certification, acquiring a three-letter word. And while I'm not against these certifications and three-letter words, my recommendation is use that as an icing on the cake, but that's not usually how it works. And I'm going to walk you through some examples and some tips on how to, right? But I think more importantly, I just want to make sure that it is not a if then else statement, that if I do this, I automatically get that, right? I think is a lot more involved in a mid-career transition, and hence it's a tricky, very, very possible, very, very doable transition, but it certainly requires a little bit more deeper thinking, right? So with that, let me kind of walk you through my 7 learnings over the years as I've coached, as I've had the privilege to mentor hundreds of professionals, especially in India, right? So I think the first one we already talked about. Mid-career transitions are like changing planes while you are in the air. A lot of people ask me this question: hey, does it make sense to stop life and do a full-time learning program like an MBA or a master's, which is more full-time? My general reaction is no. Now, each one of you is different, and if you have specific situation, happy to have a quick 10-minute call sometime later this week or right after this session to understand your specific situation and give you specific guidance. But in general, no. I think my recommendation is in 2 years of a full-time program, you lose a lot while you gain a lot the net might not be as effective, as opposed to working and earning and learning at the same time. And that's doable. It's been done by hundreds of folks before. It's been done now by thousands of people around the world. And so it's absolutely doable, right? So uh, that's my first kind of tip. The second, thinking is this whole feeling of stuck. And I think different people use the word stuck in different ways in their own interpretation. I have a formal explanation of stuck. In fact, for those of you who want a more a concrete mathematical equation to describe stuck, I'm about to give you one. But just reflect upon if this word resonates with you. If you feel, or if people around you who you know as your colleagues get this feeling of stuck, you're not alone. Turns out 45% of mid-career professionals, feel they're stuck. They feel like they're stagnated. They feel like they've done everything there is to do. Feel like they've maxed out. Feel like they have a glass ceiling. Many ways to describe this feeling of stuck. But I have some good news. A lot of people who think they're stuck are actually not stuck. They are just probably confused. They are probably just not aware of the options. They're probably not having a good coach to discuss their issues and resolve the blind spots. But they're actually not stuck, because I'm about to give you a definition of stuck. And by that definition, many of you who feel right now that you may be stuck may feel little better about yourself in the next 30 seconds, right? And that's the definition of stuck. And so here's the definition of stuck, and I'll let you read this for about 30 seconds on the screen, and then I'll kind of explain and give a little bit more color to this. Right. So now that you've got a chance to read through it, I'm sure many of you are smiling. If I could see your faces, I can imagine some of you are gone into an even deeper thinking. So let me explain this in case it didn't register to some of you in the first sight of looking at it. When your value in your company is higher than your value in the open market, you, my friend, are potentially stuck, right? Which means you feel that you don't want to work where you work. You feel you don't like the role that you're in, but you can't find a similar role at a similar pay scale, at a similar scope, at a similar, respect outside in the market. And so, grudgingly, perhaps more boringly, you're still continuing with where you are. Now that is stuck. Anything else that you think of is not stuck. If you want to get out and you're working and you just don't know how to, that's not stuck. Like I said, that's ignorance. A session with a coach or a couple sessions with a mentor of your choice will actually solve that. If you think that you don't want to be at the place that you are, the role that you're in, and you have determined to get out of it, and it may take some time, by the way, that's not stuck. That's kind of working on a goal, and that's probably the path that you've already started working on. Stuck means you want to get out and you still can't, because your marketability, your value in the open market, if somebody were to hire you, is not as high. Now, this is a phenomenon that mid-career professionals fall in this trap a lot. You go through the ranks, you keep on getting a higher salary, but perhaps not scope. Salary, but perhaps not respect. And you're at a point where you're kind of overpaid in some sense from a market perspective, and that's not a problem as long as you like your role, you like your company, and you are getting overpaid. That's not a problem. That's actually good news, right? You got lucky. But if you hate it, and if you want to do something else, and for God forbid if the company were to downsize, restructure, riff, right, whatever words they use, and if you're on that list, my friend, that's high risk, right? And so that is a definition of stuck, and in some sense you do not want to get stuck, right? So I'm going to walk you through some examples and some scenarios on how to, but I just want to first set the definition that it's not as bad as a lot of people think it is, right? Here's my learning number 3. Every hiring manager, I've hired hundreds of product managers, hundreds of business analysts, hundreds of engineering leaders, dozens of salespeople in my career path. And what I tell you, just from my own experience and the experience of other, 1.8 million product manager leaders in the United States and elsewhere, is that we look at 3 different lenses when we hire. Now, it may not be very visible in the job description, but I think it's important for all of you to understand that while you are in the early career part, the 0 to 5 years of experience, you may not care about the other 2 cylinders on the left and on the right, which is leadership and domain, right? You're primarily hired for the function that you are currently performing. So if you're a developer, they want to see how good of a code you write. If you're an analyst, they want to know how can you do better inferences and listening skills. If you're a user experience designer, they want to know how you prototype. If you're a data scientist or a data analyst, they kind of want to know your statistical and math skills. But as you go into mid-career professional, no matter what role you're applying for, they're also evaluating you inherently on your leadership skills, your ability to communicate, your ability to tell a story. A lot of people who are fairly senior, and I was one of them for a long time, by the way, we have a lot of data, but we don't have a great way to tell a story. We have lots of things to speak, but very little to say, right? And I think this is the art of storytelling, presentation Zen, as we call it. Conflict management, leading by influence, building your executive presence, gravitas. There's a lot of things that you need to build and demonstrate that as part of your leadership bubble. And then the second bubble is your functional bubble. Of course, how good you are in the skills that you're trying to get the role in. And third is your domain skills. Obviously, if you come from Juniper, Cisco is going to be loving you, right? Just because you have the same domain expertise. If you're coming from, Flipkart, Amazon is going to like you. But what if you're coming from Bosch? How do you get into VMware? In fact, we have one of our alumni who just did that. So I encourage you to ask these questions to our alumni who have made these transitions. And I think these are happening all the time. People change industry, change domain all the time. It's absolutely possible. It is absolutely doable. However, keep in mind that your aggregate score, as you impress someone, as you look for a role, even within the company, not just outside, is a composite score of 3 things. And you better allow yourself to skill yourself in each of these 3. Don't focus on the middle part so much that you forget to invest time and energy in the other 2, right? So that's a very important aspect and insight that I want to share. It sounds common sense, but many of them don't follow this. And they think, leadership skills is only when you get into leadership roles or a VP role, and that's not true. That's not true at all, right? So that's my kind of learning number 3. My learning number 4, and this may be slightly controversial for some of you, and some of you may disagree. So at the risk of being, slightly controversial, let me tell you, resumes are dead. Let me repeat, resumes are dead. Most hiring is now happening through what we call a portfolio of demonstrable skills. These demonstrable skills are examples of how you can showcase what you know, how have you applied what you know into a real problem, and what were the outcomes when you applied that knowledge into a context, into a problem. This is a portfolio. A simple way to understand portfolio is how you and I would hire a photographer, right? Let's say there's a wedding in your house, or there's a birthday party for your kids, and you are looking for a photographer. You're looking for somebody who can take good pictures. Well, while it may be impressive that the person who applied for a job is an IIT Kharagpur gold medalist, that's not going to be the reason why you hire him or her. The reason you're going to hire him or her is you're going to ask for past pictures that you've taken. Where is your portfolio? You want to see, what kind of pictures he or she has taken in the past. And that is going to make you, decide, while IIT Kharagpur may give you 5 extra points, while a certification may give you 5 extra points, the bulk of it is proving through a demonstrable set of assets, is what we call portfolio of demonstrable assets, PDA. And I think this is very crucial for mid-career professionals, especially. Now, again, for early career professionals, maybe the IIT Kharagpur will give you a straight job from the campus. Maybe you get lucky because of the association that you've had in terms of some certification. For mid-career, don't count on it. uh, and so try to build your portfolio in whichever area. If you're a designer, obviously you build your prototypes. If you're a product manager, build a product plan, business plan, marketing plan. If you're in sales, develop a set of cases on what kind of go-to-market strategy you've applied, and so on and so forth, right? A good case study that I may not have enough time today, but I'll leave you to read and do a quick Google search is this name, Nina. This is one of my favorite examples to give. And so Nina wanted a job. She's in Middle East, and she wanted a job at Airbnb, right? So unlike everybody else who sent their resume to HR, which we all know goes into some kind of dead box, if at all you'll get a thank you email and that's about it. It's a completely black hole. You have no idea what happens. She wrote a blog, and the blog said 7 things I would do if I was in charge of Airbnb in Middle East, if essentially I was a product leader for Airbnb in Middle East. And she demonstrated all of her skills, right from pricing analysis to competitive analysis to even figuring out a strategy and recommending a strategy from her perspective. And then she posts this, blog, tags the founders and co-founders of Airbnb. In fact, on LinkedIn, 36 hours later, a bunch of people commented on her blog about why her approach to the Airbnb entry in Middle East was good or bad. While lots of people have lots of free time on social media, as I am sure you can imagine, lots of people gave lots of comments. But the co-founder of Airbnb, goes into about 36 hours later and puts a one-liner comment saying, I love your analysis point 1, 6, and 7. I disagree with 2 and 3, but I love 1, 6, and 7. Would you like to come to San Francisco and help us lead this vertical? No HR, no resume, a complete demonstration of skill, and the co-founder of Airbnb gives her an offer. Now you may think, well, hang on, this sounds like science fiction, seems like a good plot for a Bollywood movie, but this is actually happening. This is happening with hundreds of people. In fact, we have at the Institute, one of the things that I love about the assignment at the Executive MBA program is you actually have to write this blog in the second semester. 7 things I would do if I was a product manager at blah. Replace that blah with your favorite company that you want to get attention. And when these blogs are written, I'll give you a real story of one of the people in Bangalore, which is probably more vicinity, closer to where some of you are on this call. So he writes this blog. There are 7 things that I would do if I was a product manager at LinkedIn, because his dream company was at LinkedIn, to join LinkedIn. And by the way, this person is a project manager at a large manufacturing company, right? So he's not a product manager yet. He's got 7, 8 years of experience, but he's not a product manager. But he has got enough skills that he wants to now demonstrate, and that's a mandatory assignment. So just like everybody else, he posts this. Does a fantastic job in creating the 7 different, recommendations, including pricing, including prototyping, including rewriting what he thinks is a LinkedIn app and how it should behave, because he's learned design skills now in the program as well. 46 hours later, history repeats. Co-founder, the head of India, LinkedIn, Akshay Kothari, goes back into that thread, into the LinkedIn thread. By the way, where does he post this blog? Back on LinkedIn, because every one of you can do this, right? We don't need to find your own website. So 7 things I would do if I was a product manager at LinkedIn, posts is on LinkedIn, and 45 plus hours later, Akshay Kothari, head of LinkedIn India, goes and makes the same type of statement saying, you know what? Can you come next Monday and explain the rest of your things to our team? We would love to have somebody like you run this. This is the way to get the attention of the right hiring managers through a portfolio. And by the way, this is not the only way. You can have a PDF document that explains what you've done. A blog is just one instrument of the many ways to build and demonstrate that portfolio. So keep this in mind. Resumes are dead. Now, that doesn't mean you don't have one, but don't invest over amount of time and resources and hanging your hopes on resume. Have one, because of course everybody should have one, but don't count on it. Learning number 5, networking is very, very crucial. Now, again, this is common sense, but I find this common sense fairly uncommon, especially in the context of Southeast Asia. A lot of people think networking is having lunch with 2 of your best buddies every day at the cafeteria in your office. That's not networking, that's just affiliation. Networking means you're trying to reach out to people who are potentially relevant, potentially can be a good role model for you, and ideally those kinds of people who you want to become. So if you want to get into sales, hang out and network with sales folks. If you want to get into data scientist role, well, hang out with people and see what a day in a life looks like for them, right? I think this is very important to understand that what you know is important. Who you know is even more important, right? And so again, this is not a very deep insight in the sense that it's common sense, but I just want to add this into my top 7 because I see this uncommonly practiced. Most people don't invest enough time in networking. In fact, one of the questions that I got asked in the class, where one of the sharp alumni said, "Hey, look, Professor Shah, you keep on talking about networking. How do you define if I'm a good networker?" And I actually did not have an answer 3 years ago when I got this question asked in the class. So I did some research, and later I came back to him, and I'm going to share all of that, share that insights with all of you. That unless you're adding 20 relevant connections every month on LinkedIn, LinkedIn just being one such easy way to network at a professional level, you are not an active networker. So the definition of an active networker is adding 20 relevant connections every month. And that's a benchmark. Now you can go higher than that, you can go lower than that, but that's apparently what the industry best practices are, where a lot of people think that that means you're an active networker. Now, if you've not added those connections through LinkedIn, through your other networks, through your other social and professional opportunities, you're not actively investing time in networking. And I think that it would be a big mistake as you make this transition. Here's learning number 6. And a lot of people say that learning needs to be balanced. You need to have what we call a balanced T, right? And I don't know if you've heard of this advice, especially HR managers and management gurus said that, look, be enough broad and enough deep, right? You can't be so deep that you know everything about one thing, but you're not you're not broad enough because your breadth is very limited. And so you'd not be able to now participate. Vice versa, you don't want to be so broad that you know a little bit about everything and you are not deep in any one thing, right? So that was the advice given to you. I want to replace that advice because it's slightly obsolete now in the last 5-7 years or so, where the advice now that I'm trying to dispense is become a cross-functional specialist. You have to be good in one thing. That one thing could be project management, business analysis, data science, user experience design, product management, you name it, right? You have to be good in one thing, but you need to build a cross functional skill portfolio where you understand the bigger picture. You may not be able to exercise that in a given environment, but how do you interlock with engineering is as important as how do you interact with sales, how do you interact with marketing, how do you interact with pre-sales, how do you interact with finance, how do you interact with customers. And that ability for you to interlock and develop that customer context, business context, and innovation context is really very, very important as you build your cross functional expertise. So you have to be cross functional. Remember, I'm also saying you have to be a specialist. Don't be a general manager that knows little bit about everything. In fact, that is also a bad idea. A lot of people, try to say, well, I want to do an MBA and I want to learn everything about everything. Bad news, in my personal opinion. I think general management is good when you're in the 0 to 3 years experience, and even in that zone, the value it's losing is very quick. But as soon as you cross 5, 7 years, there's no point in learning a bunch of things that you will never apply, right? So try to learn enough business, enough customer context, business context, innovation context, but make sure that you're always deep enough into something, because your job is to become a cross functional specialist. And my last tip, in interest of time, I'm going to stop because I think we have some amazing speakers lined up here from what I could see this afternoon. So I'm going to pause and then take maybe a couple questions. But this is a very important statement to reflect upon by Paul Heckel. Now, Paul Heckel made this prolific statement. I'm going to give you about 30 seconds to read through what's on the screen, and then I'm going to tell you my inference on what you walk away from this prolific statement. And so this is a very interesting statement that says, look, everybody has an opinion. Every one of you may have an opinion why Zomato is a bad app and the screens don't look good, and why Swiggy is better, or why Uber could be, somebody's not thinking something straight, and why the Indian Railway, IRCTC website is horrible, and so on and so forth. Everybody seems to have an opinion on what he likes and what he dislikes. That does not mean he or she has the skill to evaluate and fix that. And hence, the biggest walkaway that each one of you need to be slightly more reflective in your own lives, professionally speaking especially, is knowing the following statement. Knowing is not the same as having the skill for it. I may know a lot of things. That does not mean I have the skill for it. And when we talk about becoming a cross functional specialist and building skills, I want to kind of go a little deeper by walking you through what we call 4 layers of learning, especially for executives and working professionals. Again, this is highly relevant to people who are in that mid career bucket, right? The first level is the outermost layer of the sphere called awareness. How do I become aware of that topic, of that area? So if it's data science, do I know the difference between a data analysis, data engineering, and data visualization? Do I know the difference between supervised learning and unsupervised learning? Do I know the difference between machine learning and AI, right? These are all awareness level topics when I say I understand data science. The next level in, which is requiring a lot more deeper understanding than the first level, is called literacy. Literacy means not only do I have the buzzwords, I can also have conversations. I can have meaningful conversations around the buzzwords, around the frameworks, in a given work environment. So I'm now literate about it, right? The third, which is where the crux is, which is where you all need to get to, especially when you're trying to make that shift, is skill. Which means not only do you have the frameworks, the theory, the understanding of the concepts, you've now applied that in a given problem setting. You've now done this multiple times, in fact, and gotten feedback on the way you've applied it. So hence now you have a portfolio, going back to our tip number 4, that you now have a way to demonstrate that particular skill, right? And that is very, very crucial. Of course, the next level up, if you want to go further beyond just skill, is the hardest part, but it's also highly rewarding, is to become an expert. So not only are you a skilled professional in that particular skill, you are now setting up the process for the rest of the company. You're now the de facto expert where people come to you, and you're influencing the policy, you're influencing the way people hire in that area. You're kind of a community leader where you're sharing your best practices with the rest of the fraternity outside of your company and becoming a thought leader, right? So these are the 4 layers of learning. And what I really want to ask yourself, or allow you to think about asking yourself that question as you reflect upon, that when I say I know something, right, we all have this cognitive bias. And let me be self-critical. I have this cognitive bias, that I'm healthy. Now, for those of you who don't know what is cognitive bias is this feeling of of thinking that you are somebody who you're actually not. Right? So I may think I'm Shah Rukh Khan, and then the mirror comes back and says nowhere close, right? Or pick your favorite actor, right? And so we all have this feeling, this usually an elated feeling about ourselves. Now, cognitive bias is that blind spot, right? So I may think I'm a very good user experience designer, I'm a great project manager, I'm a great business analyst, I'm an awesome product manager, and many of us are even in the title of a product manager, product owner, business analyst. That doesn't mean that you have the skills. You have to ask the deeper question, right? And so keep this in mind. Knowing something is not the same as having the skill for it. So invest that time and energy to build skills. And here are some things that I always get asked these questions. So I'm giving you some tools. So to build awareness, you can do some video-based learning. Very, very effective, cost-effective, time effective, right? Udemy, Coursera, a lot of video-based learning will give you awareness. It's a great opportunity. Then if you really want to build the next level, usually certifications, workshops, where you have 2-day, 3-day, 5-day, a focused way of learning and understanding with a mentor and a faculty, how do you kind of stitch together, in which situations do you apply what. But then you get into skill, and skill cannot happen over a week, over a 10 days. It has to happen over repetitively. And usually the best way to explain learning skill is like learning swimming. Imagine somebody who wants to learn swimming by just watching YouTube videos, right? Or a Coursera course. Very, very inefficient. If at all you can make it, all you can know is figure out what degrees and angle to move your hands. But you actually need a swimming pool, step number 2, right? Or part number 2, to practice that swimming. But that's not where it stops. You actually need a mentor, a coach, a faculty, somebody who's watching you while you are swimming. While you're applying the knowledge into the swimming pool, you need somebody to watch you, fix that, give you feedback. Because who knows, you may be splashing too much water. You may not recognize this. Somebody else has to kind of give you this feedback. And repetitively, when you do that, now you have the skill. Skill means you give me any problem, I know which framework to use, I know which tool to deploy, I know which technique to apply, and I will get to that solution, quickly in a predictable way. That's skill. So all I'm asking all of you to reflect upon is that, go back to Paul Heckel's statement. Knowing is not the same as having the skill. Now, if you have the skill, great. I'm not criticizing, this is not a mass criticism, but I also want you to be slightly more aware of the cognitive bias, slightly more aware of the blind spots that we may think about ourselves, and so that way you can kind of fix it, right? And so essentially what happens now is, as you may navigate through your career, you find your career anchor, you kind of where you want to go, as long as there's a company who supports that, and as long as it's in a hot area, this is how you define the career trajectory, especially when you are making the transition. And there are 3 hot careers, by the way, just to sum it up. In my opinion, there are many hot careers, by the way, but the ones that I'm aware of, the ones that I've understood and I have practiced myself, is data, design, and product. These are 3 spots, 3 careers, which for the next 20 years or so are going to be extremely lucrative from a high demand perspective. That doesn't mean it's good for you, right? Not everybody can become a data scientist. Not everybody should become a data analyst, because you have to enjoy this. But if you have inclination, these are the skills that you would need for a typical product career. And again, I'm going to put this up for your review. And there's a similar chart that you would go build the skills for data careers. And there's a similar chart that you would go build for a design career. So this is a prescriptive guidance that I want to leave you with, that if your goal is to kind of move into a product role, you can either become an inbound product manager, outbound product manager, data product manager, or a financial and a business product leader, right? And again, the word product manager is more broad. It's not just a title. You can become an engineering leader, still apply product management skills to move up to become a VP of engineering. So don't think that product management is just a just a title. It's not. It's way beyond the title. And so here are some competencies that globally people look up to as they build up their career in terms of filling those sweet spots. for product management. So I'm gonna looks like it was a marathon run, so I'm gonna stop now, pause. Hopefully this makes sense. Hopefully this allowed you to actually ask some more questions, if not answer your questions. But happy to take a few right now.
Right, Professor Shah. This was a very great insight from you. We have plenty of questions lined up for you actually. Let's start with a question from Satyajit Jaina. How different is the line between functional and domain skill? That's what he has to ask.
Very different. So you could have a lot of domain skills. When we say domain, I mean industry, I mean vertical, right? So you may have spent time in the hospitality industry by being a product manager at Marriott. You could have been spending time at a credit card company, at a financial services company, where let's say you were the product manager of a banking solution. Or you could have spent time in manufacturing company like Bosch, where you are a product manager for one of the automotive products. So the industry is defining your domain expertise, and functional skills are global and transparent. In other words, they are transferable skills. So when I know how to price something, whether I'm pricing a automotive part in Bosch, whether I'm pricing the fees in the banking solution, or whether I'm pricing something on Swiggy, the pricing skill is a functional skill. It is independent of the domain. So these two are very different things, Satyajit. Now, I also tell you, it's hard to teach domain to somebody, especially in a business school, right? So while you can learn and have awareness level of the domain, you really have to spend time in that domain to really immerse yourself in the domain for a few years. It's very hard to teach domain. It's very easy in the sense it's doable to teach functional skills, but it's not that practical to teach domain skills. So domain is usually something that you spend time with. Over time you will learn, depends on your learning capacity. Some will learn in 1 year, some will learn in 5 years, some may take even longer. So domain is a little hard to teach, but functional skills is where your focus ought to be. Leadership skills is where your focus ought to be, so that overall score, when you're trying to make that shift, your domain may be weak, but if you're very good, 9 out of 10 here and 9 out of 10 on the other one, you will still crack that interview. You will still impress that other person, right? So hopefully, Satyajit, that answers your question.
Right, thank you. We have another question, though, a very interesting one. This is from Ajay Pai. He asks us why we look for a mid-career level change. Most companies ask for experience. We learn the skill, and when we start looking for jobs in the same domain, due to limited knowledge on project specifications, we stumble. Please guide me.
Yeah, this is what we called a cold start problem, right? And this is true psychologically for everything in life. Whenever you're trying to do something different, something new that you've not done before, you're always going to be asked the question, but why should I believe you that you can do this job, right? If you've never cooked in your life before, and all of a sudden you go into the kitchen and ask somebody, hey, I'm going to make pasta today, people are going to see you with a squirmish eye, because we've never seen you cook before. And so what gives me the confidence that you're not going to mess up, that you're actually not going to goof up? And this is a cold start problem. So don't worry about cold start problem. That is a universal phenomenon, no matter what role you're going from or to. What the only thing that can help you there again is demonstrable skills. You may not have experience. Let's say you want to become a data analyst or a product manager, and your resume says you're a project person, or you're a business analyst, or you're a program manager, which means you have 0 years of experience in product management. That's okay, right? All you need to do is to impress that hiring manager, saying, while I don't have the experience on my resume from a work perspective, here is the experience I have in building and applying those product management skills, especially all 25 of them that you see on the screen, in these scenarios. Here is my pricing analysis for why Airbnb or why Zomato should run this campaign. Here is my marketing plan on how Swiggy should disrupt the food business by giving free food every day. Sounds crazy, but here is how I'm going to do it. Here is my prototype of how Microsoft Teams should look like, uh, in terms of its interfaces, compared to Zoom and other things. Here is my strategy analysis on what my recommendation to Mukesh Ambani is on where Jio should go next. You don't need permission from Mukesh Ambani or the Ambanis to develop your strategy. You can simply use your skill, apply the pastel framework, apply the video framework, apply the the techniques and tools to be able to now demonstrate that, look, this is how I would do it. Now the hiring manager is going to be in the same phenomenon. Remember the example. If I'm hiring a photographer and you've never done photography before in your resume, but if I see the pictures, if I see, it's a lot more convincing. Your chances of cracking that interview just went up by 95% high. Compared to the 20% that you had the chance before, you're now at 95%. So that's the way to crack it, and that's the way to do it.
We will take one last question, Professor Shah. This is by Jishnu Nambia. How to see innovation in technology and leadership roles. He is a data scientist consultant looking forward to take up product roles. So his question is, do young leaders have a say when it comes to technology disruption, or should he wait for 10 years to pass by?
No. Don't wait for any years to pass by. Forget about 10. 10 years, we're all going to be in a very different world. 5 years ago, we thought Elon Musk is crazy and we're never going to have autonomous driving cars, or electric cars, and here we are. 20 years ago, we thought, Nikola Tesla and the Wi-Fi electricity of transmitting electricity without wires was crazy. Just last week, a major grid in electrical grid operator in Australia has now signed up with a startup to transfer electricity in a commercial context, right? We've been talking about this for years. It's actually happening. So the pace with which technology is changing, the pace with which business models are changing, and this is important. It's not just about technology that we should be worried about. It's also about the business model, right? A company that never made a dollar, still not making a dollar, have no plans perhaps in the immediate future to make a dollar, is worth $18 billion. And you know which company I'm talking about, right? For those of you who guessed it right, it's WhatsApp. Now, how are you valued at $18 billion, where Facebook pays $18 billion to acquire WhatsApp, which never made a penny? Welcome to a different world. Welcome to a business model. The way we monetize is different than just money now, isn't it? So the way the technology models are changing, the way the business models are changing, my recommendation is, as young leaders, do not wait. Immerse, reskill yourself, upskill yourself, get into the system. The sooner you get in, the faster you will learn. Now, specifically to your first part of your question, if you are a data science professional, you are hot property when you become a data product manager. The combination of data science and product management is a very unique combination. In fact, it's going to be one of the highest demand. Most product managers make 40 to 50% more money than their counterparts with equivalent years of experience. But guess what? The data product manager makes 30% even more money than a normal product manager. So it's amazing how high this is in demand. And the reason is a lot of decisions are now getting made with data. Product management is all about making decisions. And if you know how to use data science as a decision science, you are hot property, both in India and worldwide, in Europe and United States. So I would say you are in a good spot. If you're a data science professional, try to get that customer context, business context, innovation context that we talked about. Build some of these product management skills that you see in the field, on the wheel. You are hot property and high in demand. And I think the time for you is tomorrow. The time for you is not 10 years from now. So certainly do not waste, do not wait, would be my advice. Okay, looks like
Yes,
I
I would say
ran
that.
out of my time. Yeah.
Right, because we need to push the session forward, Mr. Shah. So let's.
Happy to answer some questions, and feel free to set up a one-on-one call. I'm going to pause, stop my screen here, so you guys can continue. But happy to connect with some of you offline and help you. Wish you all the very best, and try to reflect upon some of the things that has worked for others. It may help you as well.
Right. So, everyone in the audience, I'll give you 5 minutes now to book your slot with Professor Shah for any additional questions. Use the career code 2020 for a free consultation, but it's only till 6 p.m. tomorrow. So be quick about it. All right, then moving on to the next session. I take the pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Professor Sai Satish Vedam. Professor Sai Satish is a senior faculty and an executive coach at Institute of Product Leadership. He was most recently the director of product management Oracle. Over to you, Professor Shah. Sorry, Professor Sai Satish. I'm so sorry for that.
Thank you so much, Shama. And hello, everyone. Hope you're all doing well, staying safe in this time. It's unprecedented times, but at the Institute, we truly believe that this is the best time to actually invest in yourself, in your careers. After those very insightful session from Pinkesh, I'm sure there is a desire, there's a need to basically look at, how can we get better? How can we be ready? Hopefully when things get better, I don't know if things will get any better than and go back to the previous ones, but assuming that it's going to be a different world that we're going to be, how ready are we going to be, right? So what I want to do for the next 15 minutes or so, 20 minutes, is to quickly go through some of the programs, and especially about IPL and what programs are offered, how it might help you in different ways, especially in the different layers of the skills that learning that Professor Shah talked about, right? Awareness, learning, skill, and expertise. So in that, I'll spend some time on the programs and the pedagogy and how the Institute approaches learning. I also know there are several alumni here on the call, and I'm sure they can share their experience, or you can reach out to them separately and they can share that with you. So a little bit about IPL. I think there was an introduction before, but one thing I want to communicate here is IPL essentially believes in the single mission, right? Our mission is to create 10,000 product leaders and data leaders in this country. And this focus and emphasis started several years ago, about 8 years ago to be specific. And since then, the Institute has been working with industry practitioners, companies, and ecosystem to design and deliver programs that are relevant and contemporary to build that skill gap, right? To bridge that skill gap, if you will. So I just wanted to quickly run through some of these things. I know we are a bit short on time, but feel free to reach out to the counselors or set up a 30-minute meeting with Professor Shah or myself using the QR codes there, and happy to give you a lot more details about the program, right? So again, I think life is too short for us to try various things in our career, in our work areas, and experiment. It's good if you're continuously doing that, but whatever you take up, whatever you do, it's very important to do it with passion, right? Otherwise, it's too short. I'm sure there are many other interesting things that you can do, if not, right? So spend time whenever you want to upskill yourself or reskill and learn new things, do it with utmost seriousness, commitment, and passion, right? So that way that, you can derive that benefit. Now, a few things about the IPL, right? So first thing is about curriculum. The curriculum that is designed is contemporary, relevant, and is always discussed and validated with industry leaders. So we actually actively work with industry council. So this industry council consists of senior leaders, CIOs, CEOs, CPOs, CXOs, essentially heads of products, heads of data, a lot of these folks who we take this curriculum and discuss with them and ask a very simple question. The question is, if you were to hire somebody in this particular role, what would you like to see in them, right? From a skill perspective, from a mindset perspective. And that is how this gets shaped, and this gets validated frequently, and then that is rolled out as part of various programs. The other very important aspect at IPL is the faculty, right? Now, there are some amazing people who know the subject, especially as academics, right? They've spent decades researching, coming up with papers, presenting, and all of that. That's all great, right? And we should understand some of the concepts and tools and frameworks that are proposed by a lot of academicians. But at this stage in career, what is also very important is for somebody who does this as a living, as a work, a practitioner, if you will, an industry practitioner, coming and talking to you about what works in the real world and what doesn't, right? And that pragmatic experience is so important that you can't find these in books, right? So all faculty at IPL are practitioners. Some of them are entrepreneurs, some of them are heads of products and managing directors, actual practicing people, right? So that's a very important component to note. Now, IPL, of course, work with lots of universities, in India and outside to bring in the best of the infrastructure, the best of, coordination with government-approved programs. For example, the executive MBA program offered by IPL is a UGC-approved program, right? And this is the only program of its kind that is approved by government because the universities partner with us and actually offer that, right? So the entire course, curriculum, program, delivery, faculty, everything, experiential learning is all done by IPL, but we partner with the institutes for these accreditation, if you will. Now, it's absolutely critical that you have a dedicated support. Times that when you go through some of these programs that you feel that you're lacking motivation, or there are days when you are a bit complacent and say maybe not now, some other time. So those are the times that you need motivation. So along with your peers, there is a dedicated support staff for every program that motivates you, that discusses your challenges and see what can be done, right? Coming to the pedagogy, this is a very important aspect because everything that every program, every skill that you're going to go through is by this very simple approach called learning by doing. It is simple to say, but it's not simple to follow and do this because it requires getting your hands dirty, right? Which means you're getting out of your comfort zone, getting out of your even your comfortable rooms and chairs. Get out on the streets and talk to people, talk to your customers, understand their pain points and needs, come back, work with the team, and actually implement a lot of these things in the context of teams, right? Of course, every class, every session that is conducted, whether it is an online session, whether it is a campus session, whether it's a master class, everything is recorded because, many of your or all of your working professionals, sometimes there will be situations where you may not be able to join it, but you can go back and watch it and refer to it and come back with questions for the next class, when that's happening. Product labs or skill labs is essentially what we call as part of the experiential learning, right? Experiential learning indicates that we focus on skills, and as Professor Pinkesh was talking about, it is not enough if you claim that you know the skills. Now, are you able to demonstrate it, right? Are you able to showcase this? Are you able to apply it and showcase this? So these are the events that are constructed around your learning experience to be able to come up and say, look, not only do I know about user experience design now, but I am actually able to create some prototype. And you may not become a designer, and that's fine. You may not want to be in a design role, but in many roles, you will be closely working with designers, or you will be closely working with data scientists. So understanding and having a working knowledge of that is absolutely critical. So this product and skill labs essentially puts that in context of a hands-on experience, a sandbox environment that you all will work and showcase and build that demonstrable assets that Professor Shah talked about, right? Now, while learning is fine, having nice courses is good, excellent faculty is required. A very important aspect at this stage is you need to be part of a community, a network that you can leverage, you can rely upon, you can seek assistance from. And with 2,000 plus participants that have gone through various IPL programs, you can rely on this community. It's a fantastic alumni, right? I mean, very closely knit, very collaborative, communicative, and helps each other, right? So while one aspect is the alumni, the second aspect is every week there is an industry speaker that comes to IPL and delivers a talk, right? The talks could range from contemporary and relevant topics in a particular area. It could be domain, it could be product, it could be functional roles, ranging from there to even hiring, right? how do we hire? What do we look for people to hire? What kind of skills and mindsets that are needed? So not only can you get these insights from them, but now you have the opportunity to network with them, to connect with them, to follow up with them, right? So this is what Pinkesh was talking about. It is not just enough what you know, but who you know becomes all the more important. So this is basically a context where that is created, right? So three things: learning by doing. In that aspect of it, there are product labs. Essentially, it's an experiential sandbox where each one of you get an idea, bring your business idea, bring your product idea, and go through an ideation, go through a hands-on experience of taking that from a business idea all the way to getting it out into the market, right? Now, this is not necessarily for entrepreneurs or people who want to become entrepreneurs. This is absolutely required and equally important for anybody who is building products in companies, right? Whether you're taking the products to the market. So this gives you a very hands-on experience on how to do this one, right? And flipped classroom, meaning that a lot of learning, reading, viewing happens outside the classroom, and to make it a lot more efficient when you come to the classroom setting, whether it is a campus classroom, whether it's a virtual classroom, a lot of discussion should happen. So the value there is significantly high, because the 30 people are coming up with 30 different perspectives, right? And sharing with each other. So peer learning becomes absolutely important. And finally, around the learning aspects of it, the goal here is not for you to write some test and take some test and get a degree or get a certification. The focus is on assurance of skills, which means, are you able to learn that skill, apply that skill in the context of a real world project or an idea, demonstrate that skill to others to say, now you know that skill. Also confidence to you that you can apply that at any point in time. So assurance of skill is the focus in every program that IPL offers, right? So here are some of the skillathons that happen. Skillathon is the event where you demonstrate the skill. In fact, just before coming to this call, I was in a skillathon for some of the participants in a program where they show 5 of them, shortlisted 5 of them, presented this to an external jury, right? And this external jury typically is, again, heads of products or design or data, and they come and look at the presentation, give feedback, and then you can network with them, right? So these are very important aspects of it. So Professor Shah talked about cross-functional competencies. I'll quickly walk through this. What do we mean by cross-functional competencies, right? So if you are looking at leadership roles in products or in data, I think what is often the focus of, especially if you come from engineering, is on the innovation context, right? How can we solve this problem from an engineering or technical point of view? Features, capabilities, all of those things. What is going to be really important is a customer context, right? Understand, what these customers are, who they are, what pain points do they have, and these require certain skills. And then talk about business context, right? Essentially, when you're talking about what direction is this product heading? What is the strategy that we want to employ to be successful in a particular market? And then, of course, you have the innovation context, which most of you are familiar are. And in small, medium, large organizations, a process context is very important. And a process context, not just in general processes, but in the context of building products. And the products may use data, will use design and all of these things. In that context, how do you prioritize things, right? So this is a very crucial aspect of knowing it. Now, enough said about leadership context. I think Professor Shah gave lots of examples of it, but these are some of the core skills that you need to build to be able to ready and take advantage of leadership roles within your organization or even across the organization, right? Now, of course, if you want to take a product successfully to the market, understanding that market context is absolutely critical. So what you see is the different contexts and different skills, grouped under these contexts, which you'll be learning, especially in the executive MBA program here, right? So every participants in the executive MBA will basically go through a product leadership behavior assessments, right? So you take an assessment at the beginning of the program. It gives you a personalized report on either influentiality, which means what is the sphere of influence that you have, what level of influence can you have within is it restricted to your team? Is it limited to the larger organization, or how can you grow that influence, right? So a personalized report, and then you sit down with a coach who will help you identify those gaps or help you make better in those areas, right? So these are the assessments. So this is what I was talking about. These are all the participants in the program who actually need to get out onto, wherever your customers are. And this is a team that was working on an idea that they wanted to solve for auto rickshaw drivers, right? So if you're not talking to auto rickshaw drivers, you are making slideware, right? So this is a simple example. And this is a skillathon, right? And this person is actually an Air Force pilot who went through this program because he spent several years in Air Force, wanted to build some products for the Air Force, and went through this journey, presented to that. So I was talking about the faculty before. You have industry experts, from various fields, right? Right from advanced product management strategy to data science, data analytics. In fact, we have VPs, general managers, senior directors who are actually leading large teams, right, in various companies, and also entrepreneurs who have gone through the entire rigmarole of bringing a product to the market and come and share practical insights in all these programs. So in a sense, just to summarize, the Executive MBA program is a duration of 18 months, and this is a UGC approved accredited program offered by, we are partnered in Bangalore with CMR University and in Pune with MIT ADT, our School of Art, Design and Technology. And duration in Bangalore is 18 months. Average, work experience of people who join this is about 13 years. But we have seen people join anywhere between 7 years to up to 20 plus years. Now we have some folks with 20 plus years in the cohort. And it's primarily a campus-driven program, right? Now, which means that, we have campus in Whitefield in Bangalore, CMRIT University, where there's a very large classroom setting. Now, of course, following all the social distancing norms, hygiene, everything. And I'm sure, in the current situation, some of you may be more cautious, don't want to step out or don't want to come to the class in that setting. In that context, you can still join these classes remotely via a video conferencing setup. But of course, having a peer group and meeting the faculty, discussing it in person is a very effective and very, very enriching learning experience, right? So that's the Executive MBA, and make note of that date. The credit courses are going to pretty soon start for the executive. There are already 2 running batches in Bangalore. The third one, credit courses, will be starting very soon. There are 2 running in Pune though. So if you are looking at interesting, set up a discussion to know more about this with a counselor or with a faculty and get to that. So time is, in fact, limited seats now. They are filling up pretty fast. The other programs I just want to quickly run through is there are short-term certification programs around product management, right? So there is a program that's called ICPM Flex. Flex indicates it is a self-paced program, and it's decoupled from location and duration. So you can join that program anytime. And there are 5 core skills that are identified in that program for product management and product marketing. And there is a rigor to this, which is you will, of course, go through some digital learning, but every week there is a faculty-led, skill mentor-led live online session where you join and discuss various topics in that particular skill. So you can technically complete this in about 4 months, or you have access up to 1 year, right? And so this is partnership with University of Houston, Boyers College of Entrepreneurship, which is ranked #2 in entrepreneurship education in the US. So there are several programs here depending on the time frame, the effort commitment, the financial commitment that you can take, but all of this follow a very similar pedagogy that I talked about before. So there's another very important and interesting program that is launched called ICUX, right? International Certification in User Experience Design. Now, this is a lot more than just becoming a UI or UX designer. The focus and the goal of this program is if you want to become a full stack designer, that is, many of you may be in graphics design, visual design, whatever, now you want to become a UX designer, right? Or if you're in products role and need to have a working knowledge of design to become a full stack product manager, or if you're in program management or project management, and if you have design is an area of interest for you, just like the ICPM Flex program, you have the ICUX Flex program as well. So, which is basically starting, the cohort is starting very soon. If you go to the productleadership.com website and look under the programs, you will see all of this program with lots of information around them. A really quick thing, I think I'll probably pause here in the interest of time, but just to give you a quick idea about the Executive MBA program here, right? It's, as I said, 18 months, semesters, and each semester you focus on specific skills. 1 month, one skill, right? And this is a campus-based program, which means all of you are working professionals. So it's a weekend program and an alternate weekend program, right? So, 2 times in a month, or rather 2 weekends in a month is where you come to the campus. If you're not in a position to come to the campus, or if you prefer to stay at home, you can still join through a video conferencing setup, and the classes can continue, right? And of course, in all these things, there is the product labs that I talked about, where the participants bring your own ideas and hands-on experiential learning on that idea in the context of that idea in 3 semesters, right? So very interesting outcomes of it. Some of them will basically realize that they've acquired now the product skills, but learn that they are not an entrepreneur, right? And that's fine. That's a great learning. Or suddenly some people realize that this is so interesting and they love it, that they now start thinking it becoming either a corporate entrepreneur, whom we call as an intrapreneur, or even an entrepreneur starting it, right? So that's essentially about the Executive MBA program. Now, in these programs, as Professor Shah was talking about, we pick each of these competency areas, and the blue ones, by the way, are all what we call as inbound product skills, right? And the red ones are outbound product skills. So if you're somebody who's in the product owner role or business analyst role, you may already spending a lot of time in some of these blue roles, right? Which is where a growth path comes into product management role. Again, not as a title, but as a role. Even if you are in engineering, even if you are in marketing, in sales, in pre-sales, it's important to know and have a working knowledge of all these skills so that you get a holistic view of the business, because that is required for you to move into leadership roles, right? So this will be applied in that context. So simply put, for an executive MBA, the key drivers essentially for you ought to be building your own personal brand, so that you build that portfolio of assets, you demonstrate it, you get noticed, and build that network enough that benefits you, right? So you essentially don't build a network with an immediate intention of getting a job or making that transition. But over a period of time, that could be one of the useful outcomes. There are many other useful outcomes, but that's one of the things. Now, the key thing is you have to put yourself in a context where you have access to that network. And that's the alumni network, the industry leaders, the industry professionals that are part of this ecosystem. Okay, so I think I'll stop. Maybe I'll just quick. So for the admissions part, you have to take a test, an aptitude test. And then based on that, you will be invited for a group discussion and then a personal interview. So there is an admission process to it. So meanwhile, here are some of the, past cohorts who have graduated from the various university programs, or especially executive MBA programs, starting from 2014, 2015. And I know there are some awesome alumni here today. So I'd love all of you to listen to them, ask any questions that you may have. They will share their experiences. So feel free to ask any questions to them either today or at any later point in time, right? So with that, I will pause now and over to you, Shama. And happy to take any questions, maybe 2 minutes. Otherwise, we can.
Yes, Professor Vedam, we have a few questions for you, but we'll try and accommodate as many as possible. Pertaining to your insights, we have a question from Kirti saying, how does the ICPM Flex course be a fulfiller as a complete data-driven product manager? In other words, unique skills that the course adds to the participant as a data-driven PM, product manager.
Right. No, great question, so Kirti. One of the skills in that program, in the ICPM Flex program, is around digital and SaaS product management, right? Now, when we talk about data and data product management, let's understand if you understand, the purpose of using that data, right? All the digital products are collecting humongous amounts of data, right? Either in terms of usage, or either in terms of engagement, or in terms of retention, or various aspects of it. Now, the purpose of collecting that data is to be able to make the data-driven decisions, right? Data-driven decisions in the context of what? In the context of prioritization, in the context of investment, which means how much should we put X number of people in building this particular feature because that seems to be often used or requested, or there are some issues around it. So this lends very well to the digital and SaaS product management, right? So there is a particular skill in the ICPM Flex which will help you understand how these digital products are different, how they are being built to instrument to gather this data, and how you can use that data to prioritize, to create specific metrics to go after. Often you hear this word called metrics, right? In digital world and in the data world, right? Now you can't say, what is a metric for me to focus on? Well, the answer is it depends on what stage of the product lifecycle you are in, what type of product you are in. So the course basically gives you a framework on how to approach that particular North Star metric, and what are the secondary level supporting metrics to do, and how you used to make those decisions on that data. So there's absolutely a skill in that ICPM Flex program that you can go through. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, we have a next question from Praveen. Unlike the foreign countries, does Indian job market really appreciate a job seekers changing the domain at mid-career level?
Well, I'm sure we have speakers here and alumni here who can answer that better. Absolutely, the answer is yes. However, right, I think you go back to the 3 dials that Professor Shah was talking about. If you are already an expert in a domain and trying to transition into a company in that same domain, you are expected to have that expertise, and it's very easy for you to transition. However, to transition from one domain to another one, you need to demonstrate and show that confidence that you can do it. And the only way you actually can do that is by building that portfolio of assets to showcase that now you understand that domain so well. Now, of course, to become an expert in that domain, no amount of teaching and learning, in a course can help you. You have to spend time in that domain. But making that transition and spending that time is absolutely possible. So many have done. In fact, our own alumni, lots of them have done that. Okay.
We will take one more question, Professor Vedam.
Sure.
This is from Sumati. She has a question saying, with a total experience of 13 plus years and 6 years in product management in smaller companies, how do you crack a product manager job in a large established brand company?
I actually don't know what the challenge there is, because lots of big companies are looking for people with product experience coming from small companies, right? Because what happens in smaller companies is you may not have the depth of experience because your teams are small, your products are positioned to probably smaller markets, but you actually have breadth, which means as a product manager, you are not just looking at inbound activities like writing user stories, requirements, prioritization, but you are the product marketing manager as well in many cases, where you are looking at go-to-market, using digital marketing techniques to do that. So those are very crucial skills. Now, if you're able to convince that value proposition to larger companies, they are more than happy to. In fact, I spent all my career in large companies, and I have heard more than 60 plus product managers, over the years. I would lap up anybody with product skills coming from small companies, right? So I don't see that as a big challenge. The only thing is you have to think carefully about getting into a larger company, because there is a lot to deal with in a big company. You might feel lost, especially if you come from a small company. But that's a mindset, right? That's not necessarily a skill set part of it. Okay.
All right, Professor Vedam, thank you so much. We will move on to our next and final session of final part of the session.
Thank you, all of you.
Right. Audience, I encourage you to scan this QR code and the Careers 2020 code for a free consultations and any further questions. All right, guys, this session is just about to get more interesting as we have the pleasure and honor of having our esteemed IPL alumni joining us now. We take pride in introducing Mr. Snehal Katare, Associate Director at Metrics Healthcare, Mr. Kishan Malur, Product Line Manager at VMware. Although we had Mr. Kiran Devakonda, but he will not be joining us today due to unavailable circumstances. So let's begin our chat with the alumni today.
Hi, good evening, everyone. This is Snehal over here. Hello. I'm the Associate Director for Scientific Services at Metrics Healthcare. And I basically lead a team of people who are into service as well as products. And we cater to life sciences companies across the globe for providing them solutions and products.
Thank you, Snehal. I also got to know that it's a special day today. It's your birthday. A very, very happy birthday to you from the Institute, Snehal.
All right, thank you so much. And it's always a pleasure to even celebrate my birthday with my extended family at IPL. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Kishan, over to you.
Hi everyone. I'm hoping you're all having a great time. My name is Kishan Malur. I'm a product line manager at VMware. I've done various things, built products for a long time, and I've been an ex-Cisco, ex-Robert Bosch, moved on from multiple domains, from digital pay TV technology, broadcast media to industrial IoT, Industry 4.0, and now cloud infrastructure. So changed multiple domains as through my journey. I've also worked with a lot of startups in terms of mentoring product managers, helping them, talking about lean startup, guiding them through that. I've been associated with IPL as an alumni. Was a great game changer for me personally. And yeah, today I'm with you. Happy to take any questions or any discussions. Would love to interact with you all.
Yes, thank you, Kishan. Well, we have a lot of questions in the chat box, and all the speakers here can see them. I can read out a few to you, but if there are any particular questions you would want to answer, please go ahead.
Okay. Shama, we can't see any
All
questions.
right, I will read it out to you, no problem.
Yep.
We have a question from Ajay Pai. He asked us, while we look for a mid-career level change, most companies ask for experience. We learn the skills, and when we start looking for jobs in the same domain, due to limited knowledge on project-specific questions, we stumble. Please guide me.
Snail, you want to take that?
Yeah, sure. So it's very true. The fact that, when you have certain skill sets and, when you're trying to demonstrate it to different companies, it's important that you kind of like show it. So I would kind of like advise that, the fact that upskilling, that's the topic that I was very emphasized and very, what you might call it, gung-ho about is the fact that, upskilling is quite important in this kind of situation where you actually learn certain skill sets and you have to demonstrate different attributes to, give a complete role or complete understanding about the different roles that you play. More importantly, I think the important aspect is also trying to understand how the business functions and what are the different business models. So, in overall, I think it's the market demands more than what you can actually give. And that's what you get, you get hired for. So I think one aspect is, getting yourself upskilled in the different domains so that you have more talent to display. And more importantly is trying to understand how business works. Kishan, your thoughts?
See, I totally agree with you, Snehal. So definitely looking at different markets is very important. We may be pursuing in a certain industry. So just because I'm in fintech doesn't mean I should just close my eyes towards others. So having an open mind, trying to follow different markets, having that genuine interest in understanding different markets would really help for product managers is what I would say.
Thank you. Well, we have a next question from Mithun. How can specialists in products demonstrate their product building skills using the EMBA?
Okay. So when you say specialists in product demonstrate their product building skills using EMBA, um, definitely the answer has to be, look, the way I see it is this. When you come to typically when you upskill, what happens is it's like getting those crayons, right? You know, a lot of you get a lot of crayons with you. Imagine different wide range of colors. These are essentially your tools that you are getting. But what would you do with just the crayons? You need some canvas to actually draw and make that canvas colorful. That is what I would call applying. So upskilling is about getting hold of those crayons in different colors. Applying is about making drawing on the canvas is about applying. So the whole goal is the game has changed. It is no longer I'll spend 10 hours, 15 hours, or 50 hours on some online course. It's not just, it doesn't end there. You have to find your canvas. This is what I keep telling all my mentees in terms of what they need to do. So how do you use that skills in the EMBA, executive MBA? Is basically there is this product lab. That is your first canvas that you get, right? As you learn on Saturdays, you actually have to apply that on your product lab ideas. Or if you are fortunate enough to get some opportunities at work, that is great. But essentially, if you don't have any opportunity, you are still in transition, acquire all those crayons, acquire all those product management skills, everything that you get here in the class, in the course, and go ahead and apply that in product labs. That is the bring your own idea concept that we have, where you actually try out what works. This is point number one. I'll just make a quick another point and do. You are not just learning from your product idea. At the same time in the class, remember, there are 10 other ideas that are being presented, and coaches are giving feedback on 10 other ideas. So you're not learning about only your idea, but you're learning from 10 other ideas. So at a time when you go out of the course, you should be at least well versed in those 8 markets or 10 markets that you have actually worked on. If you are very good in attentive in class, you can actually 10x it with very less effort. So learn, apply. This is the whole point. And product labs is your first canvas. You have to keep looking for such canvas to ensure that you can demonstrate your skills elsewhere. Hope that answers, Mithun.
Yes, it definitely does. Although I started this session by saying this is going to be an interactive session, so the audience is not interacting much with us. So I encourage all of them to ask questions, as many as you can, during the time limit that we have. So audience, you can raise your hands, or you can ask your questions directly through your video.
I'd like to add a little bit to what Kishan had said. You know, I completely
Sure,
buy
sure.
the fact, that product labs is, in fact, that was one of the most fantastic experience, so to say. I think the important aspect, and just let me correct what Kishan had said. So the point is, the course is always updated to real life. You know, it's about doing the executive MBA. The question is about how do I upskill myself, and how do I upskill myself in the right skills. All right. So the most important aspect is that the executive MBA course in the IPL is basically updated to real life. Meaning what? That you learn over the weekend, you implement it on Monday. That's the way it goes. And the aspect, the fun part about this is obviously like any other executive courses. I would assume that you cover a variety of different topics. But what makes the IPL course a bit more interesting and engaging is the faculty also. We have multiple professors who have come from different organizations by having varied experiences, are speakers in different places, some of them been at TED Talks also. And, they introduce certain concepts and actually bring real life examples. Book is one part of it, but actually bring it real life examples and put you on stage. It's about getting you on stage, putting you on the spot and asking you what you think. I think that's the important aspect of it. And I would quote something that Professor Pavan Soni, he always mentions about what is innovation. The fact that we all have this notion that innovation is just about getting some new ideas and all that, but he put it very correctly, saying that innovation is something that You call something as an innovation when you're able to bring some commercial value to that idea. An idea without any commercial value is just an idea in a book. Now, that's what Product Labs helps you bring about. How do you bring your ideas to life, experiment with it, go talk to customers, get their inputs. You never know, if you got the right stuff, you might as well spin off your own company from your idea.
Yes. Mr. Kishan, we have a question for you particularly. How does your experience in transition as a product manager and your experience in Bosch as product manager and now with VMware? Kritika is interested to know.
Kritika, I'll definitely answer that question. Very exciting. Would you mind just unmuting yourself and framing it in terms of what exactly are you trying to know in that? Are you there? Are you online?
Yes, I'm online.
Sure, Kritika. Go on.
The reason behind this question is like how does it transition as I mean in Bosch we particularly joined as a software engineer.
Kritika, you're not audible.
Okay, let me check out.
It's okay. So should I just
Kritika, we request you to be a little louder. You're not audible enough.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, slightly.
Okay, sorry for that. Let me put down the question clearly. It is the reason behind this question is that how do you make a transition as a software developer or as a software engineer into a product manager role in Bosch particularly, and how does this transition as a product manager help you to gain insights in other domains as well?
okay, Kritika, let me take a stab at that with whatever little I heard. First thing, I'll answer two things. So the transitions are always exciting, exciting, challenging, and then there is that initial period of transition, especially when you transition from different domains. You will have that, there will be a steep learning curve initially, but I truly believe that, and I have done it, right? I mean, I was with set-top box company. I used to do work on broadcast technologies, digital pay TV. From there, and cloud DVR, cloud OTT, and things like that. From there, I moved on to industrial IoT, Industry 4.0 at Bosch. I mean, that was a wonderful journey, and I'm always indebted to Bosch for that wonderful experience. It's so the journey has been amazing, and you need to do that. There is a wonderful quote from this author called Tom Peters. So he says career is not just a vertical ladder. You just don't keep climbing hard. This year I became this, then next year this. So he says it's a checkerboard. Sometimes you have to climb up, which is normal. Sometimes you have to take a step sideways. Sometimes you may have to take a step back and then sprint forward. So it is a series of such experience, right? I mean, sometimes you feel changing the domain is actually a disadvantage, but no, it's an opportunity to learn a different market. It's an opportunity as a product manager to look out for a different market, understand what are the technologies. And now with VMware, I'm totally enjoying it. I'm part of the cloud infrastructure now, and it's a totally new area, and where I'm trying and learning. That whole learning bit is the fun part of it, actually, if you are up for it, right? That is point number one. The second point is how do you do the transition? See, that when you do the transition, essentially you need to, so I always tell this, how do you ease into that role in a different domain? If that is your question when it comes to transition, is you need to literally own that market. You have to understand, you have to go behind that market. If you're talking about Industry 4.0, read about it, look all the videos, try and understand, have great conversations. And since you're an ex-Boschler, are you an ex-Boschler, or if you are related to Bosch, I'm telling you, one of the most wonderful conversations with various departments, people from various departments I've had in Bosch, right? I think it was one of the most beautiful time. You understand various domain aspects of it. There are so many experts, veterans there. So there is no place, I mean, it's a wonderful experience to actually be interacting with all these guys, and you will see that. So that has been my experience in terms of transitioning. And now with VMware, it's a very, I made a transition about a year, and most of the period in the last 1 year has been working from home, but that's a totally different experience. And I'm totally enjoying getting into it, getting into the role and trying to understand this new market. Hope it answered your question.
I hope it answered your question, Kritika. Do we have you here?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Hold that frame of thought, Kishan. We have another question. Snehal, you can also pitch in for this one. How easy or difficult it is for professional with 10 years of experience as a project manager transition into product role? And after going through the product program in IPL, what role is best to target for? Internal product manager, B2B product manager, or B2C? That was a lengthy one. So do you want me to repeat that one?
No, but Snail, would you want to take that?
Sure, sure. So look, I worked in the company for about 10 years. So just to let you know, where I had done the same project management role with all skills required for project management, and, then moved into the startup environment, and where I'm working right now for the past 6.5 years. And that's when we started getting into products. I think the fun starts when you get into products, because while projects are, you have a start date, end date, and then you get over with it. A product is very interesting because of the fact that you have to stick to it and try and improve it every now and then. More importantly, it is how you basically grow or transition that from a small MVP concept and keep on, pivoting on different ideas so that you can make it into a big game and a bigger product. Now, whether which role to target, internal product manager, B2B or B2C, I typically just have been in the experience of having a B2B experience. So from that perspective, I could definitely say that, B2B for me is much more easier as compared to B2C, because your target audience is much more, I would say, uh, you know, defined, so to say. And that's the whole thing about when you start on a product, you have to keep your customer in front and then start building the product around it. So from my experience, at least from my experience, what I have had is mainly on B2B, and for me B2B is much more easier. But that's just a personal preference. B2C is much more challenging. But the thing is that the game is larger in B2C. So let's put it that way. I think how difficult it is, not very much if you really try and focus on two aspects of it. I think, when does something stop in a project? That's quite defined, but when does it stop in a product? It just keeps on going. So I think that endpoint is not there in a product, and therefore it gives you more opportunity to keep evaluating and improving it. The transition is actually more fun than what you think. So I hope that helps. Kishan, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I agree with Snehal. Most of it, it's transitions is essentially what do I call it? It's a, you need to have that kind of commitment towards that. Let me push it up with a story actually. So imagine you have no background in sales, okay, but you are interested in understanding sales, because as a product manager you may want to see and explore what is your sales strategy. How does a salesman actually work? You want to know that skill, or at least understand that. The best way to do it is shadow such people, shadow some good men, have a mentor. That could be one thing. And second thing is shadow a sales guy. So similarly, any role, guys, for example, this is Santosh wants to transition from as a 10-year experience project manager into a product management role. Simple. Two things I would say: take a good product management mentor, understand what skills to learn, what kind of things, what needs to be done. Second thing is, go to your company, go in your company, talk to a product manager and say, hey, ask him one simple question: how can I help you? I have some time after I finish my day-to-day job. I have some weekend time during the weekend where I want to learn the skill with you. Can I be of any help? Can I do something for you as a small task for you, so that to learn the skill? It's, think of it as a micro internship, if you will, right? You go and spend some time. Hey, can I do a small competitive analysis for the product and submit it to you, and maybe you can give a feedback? Who stops you from doing that? So what that happens is, that will take you to the next level, and then you'll slowly start understanding product management or whatever skill you want. And then that could also help, because you are now building contacts across, not just in program management, but you are talking to product managers, you are talking to different things, and this will spread. This visibility will definitely spread and help you. Okay, so that's what I would do.
Thank you, Kushin. Thank you, Snehal. Well, we have another question. How much hands-on is the EMBA curriculum, and how much time do I need to commit for the program? Either of you could answer the question, please.
Okay, Snehal, you
Kishan,
want to take?
Okay, fine. I'll take it. No, that's fine. I'll take it up. Okay. Yeah, this is the most interesting question, right? How much time do you really need to commit? I think the important aspect is be ready for it, because you do need to commit time. While we say that it's a weekend course, and the fact that you are in the classroom from, say, 9 to 6 or 9 to 7, depending on whether if you have industry connect programs or not. I think the important aspect is, like I said in one of my sessions when in the college itself, was that you have to pay utmost good attention in college, because the next thing is that the rest of the week is spent, of course, in doing your daily chores at the work, but also you need to spend time reading at that point of time. So I would assume that, barring the weekend classes that are there, I think the rest of the week also probably about 2 hours or 3 hours every day probably is required, just to catch up and read more. I mean, it's there's a lot of reading material that the faculty will suggest. Uh, Product labs is a little exhaustive because you have to read beyond what you really know. So it's more exploratory in nature. And it's about talking to customers, fixing time, getting on calls. I think it requires a good amount of commitment to actually get the best out of the course. I wouldn't say that you can get away with a little bit of commitment, but if you really want to extract the maximum mileage out of this particular course, if you put in more hours, you'll obviously get more benefits out of it. Kishan?
Bang on, Snehal, because it's how much you want to commit, right? So I'm sure we both share that experience in terms of, and we totally agree with you. It is how much you want to commit, right? If you really want to extract the maximum out of it, you need to make sure that you manage your the work life and your course curriculum and things like that uh, in a very balanced way. So you have to manage this. So that is one thing. You have to manage your time very well. Second thing is, I always give this example. So and this is one of my favorite examples actually. So there is a huge sea, and you are actually going to the sea. I mean, if you are taking up this course, you are actually going to the sea to get water. Okay, so is there a dearth of water? No, right? There is a lot of water there. But the question is, what is the size of the bucket you are carrying? If you carry a small tumbler, you'll get that. So if that is what you want, if that is the extraction you want, you'll get that. But if the bigger the container you go with, the bigger amount of things. And what do I mean by that? It can be skills, it can be resources like case studies, whatnot. It could be knowledge. And remember, you are all also talking about faculty. All the practitioners who are as faculty are going to be in front of you, are going to be available to you as an access. So you can either close your book, go out after the class and drive your car back home, or you can choose to spend time, build relationships, and talk to faculty, enhance your network, talk interesting things, build have wonderful conversations with your faculty. So you can do that. You have access to so many alumni in terms of, and if you look at the alumni, I'm sure they're all spread out in one of the topmost companies across the world. Now why would you want to miss that chance of connecting with them? So if an alumni calls me and say, hey Kishan, I am an alumni at IPL, I won't cut your call. So you have access to all these resources. So how much time you have, how much time you can afford is actually the question. But if you are asking for a minimal time that I need to spend, then you know the answer. It's just the weekend classes plus some 2-3 hours for your assignments in a week. Maybe 10-20 hours in a week is what I would say. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if you have to draw a number, I think 10-20 would be including the weekend classes, but I think post that it'll be about 8 to 10 hours a week.
Yes.
That would be more than sufficient to at least get
That's
through
your
with understanding the basic concept. But obviously, if you want to do more, then put in more time. That's it.
This indeed was a very interesting question. Professor Shah, Professor Vedam, would you like to add anything on the AMB curriculum part of it?
Sorry, I was on mute. No, I think between Snehal and Kishan, who have firsthand gone through this experience, are giving their pearls of wisdom, and this is to be taken seriously, right? So while as faculty, we can talk about various things, but as a person who has gone through this program, it's a lot more personal and it's lots more effective. But if there are any questions that either Snehal or Kishan wants me to add, I'm happy to do that, right? But otherwise we can carry on.
We have one last question for you, and it says, how does IPL help in making the change in job leading into senior product manager profiles?
Oh, is that for me?
Yes, anybody could answer that.
Sorry, could you repeat the question, please? We missed it.
Right. So they're asking us, how does IPL help in making the change in job leading into product profiles?
Yep. So maybe I'll add something here, and then you guys can share. So one of the things that's available for every participant of every IPL program is what we call as career career labs, right? So career club, sorry. And a career club is very interesting because there are lots of hiring managers in the industry who are looking to hire product talent, not just based on resumes or whether they have a past experience as a title of product manager, but essentially evaluate them on display of skills and apply those in the context of a real world challenge that they give. So what we've seen is the hiring manager comes and provides a job description that they are hiring for, presents about the company, talks about the JD, and of course, so whoever is interested can register to that event. And during that event, they actually give a very interesting product challenge, right? So these challenges typically could be, look, we already have an existing product with this customer segment in this particular geography. Now we are looking to enter, if we are looking to enter this different market, how would you think about a go-to-market strategy for it? And then they give you about 2 days time or 3 days time, and the registered participants will need to apply now the go-to-market skills that they have learned or going through in the program, come back after 3 days, make a presentation to that hiring manager. And this is not HR and talent acquisition, by the way. This is directly the hiring managers because they want to evaluate the product talent directly. And once you present it, they evaluate based on that, they shortlist it and take it away. So I believe in the last 1 month, in August, there were 9 companies that came to hire for a variety of roles in products, right? Starting from product owner, product manager, to even a senior director of product management, right? Again, it's not just restricted to product management as per se, but product leaders, if you will. So this is a very interesting opportunity. In fact, everybody at IPL, anybody who has gone through, even our alumni, can absolutely take advantage of that.
Professor Vedam, we have another question. What are the typical KPIs for a product manager? All 3 roles mentioned above, is it associated with numbers or faster go-to-market strategy?
Good question. It gets a little technical though. KPIs, meaning if you are looking at how do you measure the success of a product manager, right? Or the KPIs could also be how would the organization look at how the business is performing or the product is performing. So often they are tied, which means, if you identify increase in revenue as one of the goals as for the product or the business, then naturally there are certain KPIs that are tied for the respective product teams or product managers. But this could be in terms of customer acquisition goals, which is how many customers do we need to acquire in a given period of time, or a revenue, or even new product introductions. So there are many areas where companies look at it. There is no single answer. It also depends on what stage of the product that you are in, right? So if you are in a early stage of a product where we call problem solution fit, the KPIs or the metrics that you're going to be measured are very different than when you are in product market fit or even a business model fit. In a large company, typically on an existing product, you will be measured on if it's an inbound product manager, how many releases have we done in 1 month, and if you're following in agile way, right? Or if you're a outbound product manager, how many customer deals have we helped the sales close, right? You don't directly involve in the sales closure, but you enable the sales team to help that close those deals. So there are different variety of metrics and KPIs that are used.
Let's conclude the session with one final question, and I'd like Kishan and Snehal to be a part of this one. How has product roles changed, evolved, and how will it be in coming years? An example would be great to hear from.
I'll go, Snehal.
Yeah, no, you go first.
Okay. Just know what a wonderful question, man. So let's start with project management. Project management has been there for a while, and as a function, project management, you see such a maturity in terms of, you want a template, for project charter, it's there. You want a template for project closure, it's there. So you name a template, you name anything in project management, the resources, you get it all ready made, and as a function it has matured in such a way. Product management is relatively, so the keyword being relatively, young and new, and it is in an evolving stage, it is in the transient stage, I would say, as a function. So by the way, the last 3-4 years or 5-6 years has been extremely fast, extremely structured in terms of its growth, especially in India, I would say. And thanks to IPL, for example, we have been creating so many product leaders from the stable. So there are very well defined templates. For example, you have seen the productization wheel, so something like that. So such frameworks are coming out, evolving. There are some very tangible efforts going on from partners, like there are players like iSpirit, NASCOM and all, who are building such things. For example, product certification, we don't know what is going to come. So there are many such initiatives that could be coming, where they're developing a body of knowledge similar to PMI. Who knows what are coming. So those are the things. But in terms of product management as a function, what will be next? So here is my thought, here is my assessment, and we have Professor Shah, Professor Vedam, Snehal, and many other experts here. They can also correct me or weigh in if I'm going off. It's a huge, product management has a wide range of activities that a product manager has to do. Somebody asked a question, if it is a small company, one guy is doing most of it. But as you go to larger corporations, it gets spread out in terms of product management, marketing, inbound, outbound, customer. So going further, it will become, each of these roles will become more and more spread out. And because the kind of volume and the information that has to be processed, the kind of decisions that has to be made out will be much higher. So a lot of things, for example, GTM may become a service of its own. There could be a GTM product manager, by the way, this is my guess. And there could be a product manager just to maintain the roadmap, feature management, prioritization, and things like that. There could be, so user experience, dealing with the user experience, it could be one. Dealing with data science, we are already seeing the trends in this direction, but it will become more and more stable, and it will become more and more concrete in these aspects of product management, is what I believe. Over to you, Snehal.
Yeah, I completely buy that point. Very recently, I was just looking through different job profiles just to evaluate, even for as a preparation for this particular session, was what kind of career paths are now available for different product managers. And you're rightfully said, because now it's getting to the niche. Every the role is getting more defined, and the depth is increasing. More importantly, what does it mean for people who want to actually get into that role? I think the important aspect is that you need to understand the skills that are required. Be it understanding even how do you run financial sheets, how do you read financial sheets, how do you understand data and interpret that data, how does that data actually influence your product strategies, How do you market a particular product? Like rightfully said, Kishan was bang on that point. How it's going to get niche. So the important aspect is, uh, it also is an advantage in one way, because the fact is you basically get to understand all of these different, uh, I would put it, for the lack of words, as routes in which you can go, and then kind of like specialize in one of them if you wish. But the idea is that you still have an holistic overview of the entire product. When we started the course, it was very rightfully said that if you are a product manager, or you're the product owner, you're the CEO of the product. Every decision that you take about the product is yours, be it financial, marketing, sales, customer support, analysis, what have you. uh, that puts a lot on your plate, because you need to understand all of these, from a customer perspective, from your perspective, from a business model perspective. So there's so many things that are there. But going forward, it might start getting a bit more niche. You just have marketing for the product, or maybe customer engagement for a product. This is going to be going in that direction. Yeah.
Yeah, just a few thoughts on that. I think, one thing, if I were to really summarize the crucial aspects, or the hallmark of this role, if you will, is ability to make decisions in the face of ambiguity. Right, there is a lot of ambiguity around building products and taking the products to market.
True.
And that is only going to get complicated, right? And I would say it's going to get from ambiguity to complexity, right? Why? And even uncertainty, because there are a lot of disruptions that are happening from behaviors point of view, from technology aspects, which means now you're having to consider far too many things than you had to consider before, right? So that is going to continue. In fact, now I'm seeing certain niche, as both Kishan and Snehal said, niche titles called AI product manager, right? Now, I don't even know what that means yet, right? I think it looks really cool on an AI company, so they are slapping that title on. But realistically, that is going to happen, which means now you're going to swim in data and you have to make decisions based on that. One of you asked this question, right? So the amount of ambiguity, the amount of complexity is only going to increase. And hence, equipping yourself with the right set of skills and being in that role for a long time. It's not just enough if you get those skills, right? You have to spend time there. You have to fail, you have to learn, you have to pick up. And by the way, any product manager will tell you, it is actually a frustrating role, at the same time very rewarding role, right? And the simple way I put it is, if the product if the product succeeds, the credit goes to the entire organization. If the product fails, it's a product manager who loses their first job. Remember, right? So it's both rewarding, fascinating, and if you like that kind of a thing, this is the role for you. Again, not as a product manager, as a title, as somebody who gets that on a resume, but as somebody who needs to look at the cross-functional aspects of it and make sure the product succeeds in the market, right? So that's not going to change anytime soon.
Right, Professor Vedam. And we are at the end of our session. We do not have any questions from the audience. Audience, any more questions? Please do share. If not, then please scan the QR code here and the code careers 2020 for your any future questions. This is available for you for consultation free of cost till 6 p.m. tomorrow. Otherwise, it's on a chargeable basis. Well, to conclude our session, Mr. Kishan, Mr. Snehal, we are very thankful that you were here and you shared your time and such beautiful insights about the subject.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you for
Thanks.
joining in and making the session a huge success.
Well, thank you,
you.
Snehal and Kishan, for taking your time. I know it's Saturday evening. I'm sure there are better things to do, but I truly appreciate your time here. And hopefully, I've learned quite a bit from your journeys too, and I'm sure many of the audience here did as well. Thank you.
No, it's always a pleasure. It's always a pleasure to be here and to interact with you folks. So everyone in the group who have joined today, thank you so much, and happy to help.
Thank you everyone. Thank you Professor Shah and Professor Vedam as well.
Sure.
Hope to see you soon again.
Sure.
All right. Lovely. Have a good
Thanks
evening.
for joining us. Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.